What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Elliot, and this is MovieFiles. Today we are here to discuss the new Netflix series, which is brought to us by the same creators that made one of the greatest shows of all time, Dark. Now, Jantje Friese and Baran are back yet again with a brand new epic period mystery horror show by the name of 1899. Now, I have seen the first 6 episodes courtesy of Netflix, and there will be 8 episodes in total. And by the end of this review, I'm gonna let you all know if it's worth your time. And the tagline for the show reads, "What is lost will be found." And I'm gonna let you all know if we found a new series that can compete with Dark. We'll be discussing that and so much more in today's spoiler-free review. But before we get into it, if you all haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that notification bell. That way you all can stay up to date with all my daily content. You can also give your boy a follow on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. All those links can be found in the description below. If you enjoyed today's spoiler-free review of 1899, well, make sure you're giving the video a thumbs up as well as sharing it. But more importantly, share your anticipation level for this new series. First off, have you seen Dark? If so, can we all admit it's the greatest show of all time? But in all seriousness, let's talk about your fandom of Dark, how excited you were for this new series, and of course, once you've seen the series, let's talk about it in the comments below. As I've said quite a few times, Dark is one of my favorite shows ever. Loved it, reviewed all 3 seasons, and the show doesn't get talked about enough, but your boy knows what kind of masterpiece that show was. So excitement level for this show, it was pretty high, to say the least. So again, this would be a first impression review, no spoilers, of the first 6 episodes out of the 8 that will be given to us by Netflix on November 17th. So getting into, if you all are not familiar with this series, you never heard of Dark, you never heard of 1899, let me give you a brief rundown on what you all can expect from this new series. Group of European migrants leave London on a steamship to start new lives in New York City. But when they encounter another migrant ship adrift on the open sea, their journey begins to turn into a nightmare. So starting off with my positives, I want to talk about the incredible production of this show. And being that I am a fan of Dark and just remembering how beautiful that show looked, the cinematography, the locations, the different worlds we played a visit to, but translating that into 1899, I remember seeing the trailer a few months ago and saying to myself, oh, we seem to be just on one location, being on this ship, which I was okay with. But now after seeing the first 6 episodes, without getting into details, let's just say, we're now on the ship the entire show, and going into, let's just talk a little bit about this ship, and that holds over 1,500 passengers. Wow, what an incredible job from the production team to recreate, number one, the late 1800s with the costuming and the corridors and the carpeting and all the meticulous details. I'll let you all know. Pay attention to the background when you're watching the show. I'll just give you a little tip there. But just seeing the passengers when they're looking over the railings and looking at the vastness of the ocean and the waves crashing, the rain coming down their face, the production of the show is absolutely spectacular. And bringing it back to when we're not on the ship, wow, this show is like literally like watching art. It is just so well put together, and that is due to the part that, number one, these creators have a great eye for just knowing how to put a good show together, but also they were kind of restricted to when they shot this show was during the pandemic, so they weren't able to be on location like they were as much as Dark. But thanks to amazing technology from the stagecraft technology by the name of The Volume, which you all might know from The Mandalorian or even most recently with The Batman, it is just amazing what they're able to create. And one of the things that I always love about how this technology is kind of pushing an envelope for movies and shows. Now, from what I know from actors and interviews, when they talk about when they're acting against a green screen, sometimes they got to dig deep into their imagination to imagine themselves being on the ocean or being in space or being, somewhere crazy that you can't recreate because it's not on planet Earth. Sometimes it's kind of hard and it takes away from them communicating with the other actor that they're in the scene with. But with The Volume, you're able to create this environment as if you're really there. So now the actors don't have to pretend they're in the middle of the ocean. They can see the ocean and focus on what they're doing in the scene. So I thought the production, the way that they use the technology was absolutely fantastic. And it is beautiful to look at. But then that brings me to one of the amazing things about the creators of Dark is how meticulous and detailed and how immersive the direction is. Now, I thought that Baran Odar and his partner Jantje Friese, who I know, if I'm not mistaken, she does more of the character building, the writing, the scripting of the show, and Baran does more of the direction. And combining those two forces gives us some Amazing storytelling, y'all. Again, I'm just so impressed with, number one, we know from Dark, for those that have seen that show, that was a huge cast. And to be able to handle all those different puzzle pieces and having them come together was just nothing short of spectacular. And the same thing could be said about this show. There are, like I said, there's over 1,500 passengers. Now, I'm not going to say that there are 1,500 storylines, but there are multiple characters that we're following in this show. And the way the direction handles this is our A character, B character. These are some side characters that's going to have some huge implications to the main plot. It's just nothing short of spectacular how they're able to weave into the narrative, weave into these stories. Like, this is something we're going to give you here, and maybe it's going to have a callback to episode 5, or this was introduced in episode 3 that's going to have a payback in episode 6. It's just incredible how they're able to put the pieces to the puzzle together, which brings me to not diving too deep into the story, because as I read the synopsis, it's a pretty simple premise. You know, we have people going from Europe that's trying to go to America, and on their way to America, they come across this ship by the name of Prometheus that has been missing for 4 months. So as you can tell, the mystery, okay, where has the ship been? Are the passengers still there? What went wrong? All that stuff is there. But the thing that really fascinated me with this story is the mystery, not only from the ship, but in particular the characters. Now, I'm not going to run down the whole entire character breakdown, but the beauty of this story, of this mystery box, is all these characters are on this ship for a reason. And without giving you that reason, let's just say that they're running from something, right? From vast different locations across the world, we have different, and that's another thing I love about this show, is that it's multicultural. And I know one of the biggest complaints for people that I would recommend Dark to was the subtitles, which this show does have subtitles, just to let you all know, but there's a lot of different languages. So I love, again, the vastness of the variety of different characters that have multiple backgrounds. And one of the things that's so unique about different characters that are from maybe France, and they're talking to someone that's from US, or someone from the US is talking to someone from German, there's a lack of communication, which actually builds into the story, because everyone's kind of confused. Like, they're trying to say, what's going on here? What should we do next? And they're looking at them like, I don't understand what you're saying. So that actually builds into the narrative and makes that mystery even more kind of immersive, because you're just like, you're confused just as much as the characters are. So I love that element of the story, but also going back into the mystery of the ship, y'all. It is, after seeing 6 episodes now, it is something, as Dark was, you better not have your phone in your hand, you better not be checking your email, you better not be playing around or whatever. You got to be locked in. And that's a good thing, right? Because the show wants you to pay attention to all the details, all the story beats, because it all comes together, which was one of the fascinating things about Dark. And the same thing can be applied to this story. So the story and the mystery is something that's going to keep you on the edge of your seat. And we'll get to some of my criticism with the mystery a little bit later. But for the most part, I was really engrossed and really on the edge of my seat when it came to, what are we getting into? What are we actually handling here with this ship and these characters on the ship? So pivoting over to some of the tones in the theme, one of the things that just really struck me with the series Dark was, it is dark. It is ominous. It is dreadful. It is sometimes very horrific in the nature of that particular show. And how they apply that to this show, to me, they up the ante. Not trying to compare how dark was. I mean, there's kids being kidnapped. There are kids being killed. There's a lot of darkness in that show. But this show takes it to another level. Like, this, to me, feels more in the horror vein than Dark was, because we're dealing with some really kind of tormented souls on this ship, y'all. There are a lot of characters that are running away from things that would really scar someone's soul, without giving too much details there. So the tone is very similar to Dark, but again, I would say that they crank it up a bit, especially when you get into a particular episode later on in the season, which it's very dark. I'm like, and not dark from like the actual look of the what you see on screen. I'm talking about the nature of what's going on the screen is like, oh my goodness, how do we get back from that? Right? It's very dreadful. It gets dark to those levels, but also the themes that the show tackles in regards to identity and kind of self-discovery and running away from who you used to be to try to become someone else, as well as just your your past, if you suppress your trauma, suppress your past, it won't allow you to move forward in your life. So you see that with all the different characters here, and the themes are just very, very well done and really shapes these characters and shapes the narratives, which brings me into those performances, which again, there's a lot of cast members that, and I don't want to give all the secrets away and give all the names away, but as far as our main character goes, Mora, who is someone that has looking for her brother. She is going through a lot, and she is great. The actress that plays her, I thought, did a fantastic job from what I've seen in the 6 episodes. She looks a lot like Nicole Kidman. When you all see the show, she reminded me of Nicole Kidman in the one horror film that she made in the early 2000s by the name of The Others. I couldn't get that out of my head, but I thought that main character, she was one of the focal points. She's one of the characters that you want to follow. She's the one character that is taking you through a lot of the mysterious aspects of the ship that they're on, and also the Prometheus. So I really enjoyed her, and also the captain. Now you all might recognize him because he was one of our main characters in Dark. He was the older version of Jonas, and he is fantastic in this show. He has a very haunted past, just this mystery and this dread that he carries as the captain of the ship, as he has these difficult decisions, as he has to make sure that these 1,500 people make it to the destination while trying to find out the mystery of the Prometheus. I thought he was fantastic, but other supporting characters did a fantastic job. We have so many different pairings of Lei Ling and her mom and Mrs. Wilson. We have the people that work on the ship that have storylines that are very prominent. We have people that are under the deck that can't afford to live in the high lifestyle like some of the other passengers, and they have a very important story. So in the crew, of course, is a lot of different characters that just offer a lot to the story. Some of them more so than others, but for the most part, you can't deny the incredible performances by all these actors. So those are really my positives with the show. Great mystery box, fantastic direction, amazing production, the score, which I haven't even mentioned, by the way, chef's kiss, and again, the performances are top notch. So bringing it into my negatives, though, I will say, as I kind of alluded to, there are certain characters in this show, and particularly Mora and the captain. They're kind of our main thrust into the story, and they have kind of the most to do in the show. And whenever we would kind of check in with other characters like the French couple, or we have characters that work in the coal mines and things of that nature, some of those plots kind of drag and kind of slow down the momentum of the main plot of what's going on here, and we're more focused on what's going on in their story, how they ended up on the ship. Some of them, again, have some very dark and disturbing reveals, and again, the way that this show is structured, each episode ends on a cliffhanger, and each episode gives you answers for what's going on the ship, but also how did these people end up on the ship and where their past come from. Not all of the information that we're given, to me, wasn't as interesting as some other characters. So again, when we would shift from a character to a E or F character, it was just kind of like, I wish we can go back to the main plot because they're just not giving me what I need. And sometimes, again, not knocking the performances, but some of the love stories, the relationships that are being developed just aren't as intriguing from my personal taste as some of the other plots are. Other things that come to mind as far as negatives, again, knowing what Dark is, and it's a slow build, some of the story beats in this new show are very slow burn, and some of them so far in the 6 episodes don't have a satisfying conclusion. Some of the motivations seem a bit rushed. Some characters feel very one note, like they're just meant to serve a purpose to kind of deviate the main plot into another area, and that's really only what their service in the show is. They don't have much else than that. And I think of a few characters, one in particular by the name of Fritz. He just has one thing that he's doing on the show, and it's just very one note. And there's a couple other characters that are just stuck in their ways and don't have much to offer than just being the bad guy or being the foil or being a complication for our main characters to get from point A to point B. So I will say there are some plots and some characters that just feel very kind of one note, don't have as much satisfaction as other things. So Outside of that, I don't want to get too much away. Overall, before I let you all know my thoughts, if you stuck around to this point of the video, I can't thank you enough. Before we get into my final conclusion of this show, and if you should watch it, if you haven't already, give the video a thumbs up. Share this video to anyone and everyone you know that loves Dark and that's excited for the new show. And more importantly, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Overall, love the mystery that we getting in this show. The production is next level. The score is amazing. There is some great tension. There's great horror elements. The atmosphere. And also, like I said, every single episode has a cliffhanger that leaves you thinking what is going on in the best way possible. Again, it has some shortcomings, some characters I didn't really care for, but overall, the question at the beginning I posed to you all, is this worth your time? Hell yes, this is worth your time. I have to say, if I am comparing to Dark, based on the first 6 episodes, that is, I think Dark is the superior show so far. But again, I've only seen 6 out of the 8. So by the time we get to episodes 7 and 8, I might be mind blown. I might be on another level. But so far, I would say 6 episodes in the Dark, it was a better show than what we got in so far. But that isn't a knock because, as I mentioned, Dark is the greatest show of all time. So that's a very high bar to cross. But I do recommend you all to give this a watch. And when you do, let's talk about it. Pros, cons, favorite characters, least favorite characters. How did you take in the mystery? What things stood out to you? Let's have those conversations in the comments below. As we get closer to the release date of the show, I've already made some videos kind of breaking down things, and I plan on doing like a spoiler discussion. And depending on the demand from you all, the audience, I might have a spoiler discussion with some people that I know that love this show and love talking about these creators. So keep an eye out for that. If you want all that content, again, this is a friendly reminder before you all leave. Make sure to like, share, comment, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You all have been awesome. Hope you enjoyed today's breakdown. As you can see on the screen now, come and join the community. Check out my reviews for other Netflix series. Check out my review for Dark, and we'll catch you all on the next breakdown.